This introduction to VESTRO is the second video in the series. The first video, Getting Started, covered importing your contacts into VESTRO, linking them to their LinkedIn profiles, and it covered some key VESTRO concepts. So if you haven't seen that video already, I suggest you do that now, because that will then bring you up to where we are here. And where we are here is in the How Do I section, the first menu item on the left-hand side. And where I'm going to get started is by setting up some call frequencies. And I'm doing this because I'm using VESTRO, of course, to help me build high trust partnership relationships with my most important contacts. These are the people who are going to help me build my brand because of what they think about me and say about me. So I want to focus on who those people are, and the quickest way to do that is working my way through a list and selecting some. Now I can only select relatively few because unfortunately we human beings can only sustain about 150 genuine relationships at a time, and that includes family. That number, by the way, is Dunbar's number if you'd like to Google it. So out of my hundreds or thousands of contacts, I need to just select those people that I'm going to focus on. Now obviously that composition will change continually over time, but that's nominally the sort of limit of number I can handle. Now, one way of sustaining or building the relationship is, of course, calling on these people at some regular basis. Not to sell them something, but to build that me to them relationship, not in the context of my role or them and their role, but person to person, because that's how trust is created. So for example, I'm selecting Barbara here, and I'm going to nominate a par, number of times per year, that I'd like to call on her of 4. So VESTRO will remind me to call on her every 3 months if I don't call on her in the meantime. And I could nominate the start date of the clock, and it could be the last time I saw Barbara, or else I could just accept today's date, which I'm going to do in this case. Now as soon as I save that, and if it's the first time I've done it, I get a message to say that will I like these follow-ups or reminders to go into my Google Calendar. VESTRO keeps track of them anyway, but you may want them in your calendar as well, and if so, respond yes. And this is a setting, so it'll apply to all follow-ups from now on. And you notice that that has now been added into my Google Calendar. So as I was saying, just now go through your list, pick off a few people. You don't have to do everyone. You can set call frequencies at any time when viewing a particular person, but creating a list to start with is just a good way to get going. And these people will all appear in the contact due section, which are the people you're due to call on within the next 4 weeks. Any that are particularly overdue will be highlighted in red. So now let's advance the clock forward a few days and assume that we've made contact with Abel. Having caught up with Abel, either face-to-face or in a phone call, I now want to validate or assess my relationship with him. And so I select the score button, and I have 2 ways of doing this. I can enter a manual score, essentially put in a value between 0 and 100, 100 being the highest, that represents the strength or level of partnership in the relationship, and I can indicate whether it's ad hoc, technical, social, or partnership. But I'd only do that if I was experienced at assessing relationships, and I'm not there yet. So what I'm going to do instead is complete an assessment. And how this works is it reflects the fact that how 2 people interact reflects the type of relationship they have or are building. So in my case, I want to assess my last meeting or conversation with Abel, and from that determine what type of relationship it looks like I'm developing with him. So it was the second meeting, and I have to select gender, not because it impacts the assessment at all, but the feedback is gender sensitive. So then I go through and answer each of the questions. Now these are quite straightforward, and so I won't cover them here. You'll see them for yourself. But I will say, if you have any trouble with a question, then click on the I or information icon to the right of the question, and that will explain it. Now you'll notice that these questions aren't about specific technical content within a discussion or meeting. They're more to do with what the atmosphere was like and what the dynamics of the meeting, and in particular the extent to which it was a blend of business, personal, professional type discussions, because creating a genuine one-on-one relationship is a case of getting the blend right. Now having done that, VESTRO asked me to select what type of relationship I think I'm developing or have, and This is covered in a separate video, but if you want a bit of a refresher on the types of relationships, again, click on the I or information icon. So now I'm going to select what I think the relationship was, ad hoc, and VESTRO's telling me no, it's in fact a technical relationship as indicated by the T. The number there represents the level of partnership. So between 0 and 69, the relationship must be either ad hoc, social, or technical. And if it's 70 or more, then by definition, it's a partnership, and a P will appear there. And the top section describes why VESTRO's assess the relationship as technical. And then it goes on to give me some tips for future interaction. These are practical, simple things to do that will help me materially move the relationship from technical to partnership. And I can start doing that from the very next time I interact with Able. So now I'm back at Able, and you'll notice that VESTRO's added a contact due reminder based on my PAR of 4 or 3 times a year. So I get a reminder about 3 months out that I'm due to call on Able. And reflecting again on the nature of the contact, I'm seeking here to build a partnership, high trust relationship. So it is between Able and myself personally, who we are, not what we are. Notwithstanding we got to know one another in a business context, trust occurs between people. So it means engaging with people personally to build high trust relationships. Now, there's a number of ways you can learn about how to do this. One example is a book called Smarter Selling. Google it. There's an excellent text on building high trust relationships, plus there's others on building trusted advisor relationships and a number of training programs. So when I contact Able, I'm going to be conscious of adding value to him, not selling him products or even talking about products and services, but industry news, insights, anything that might be of interest to him that I can share so he sees that I'm always thinking about him. We'll now take a look at how VESTRO arranges your contact information. Now in your device contacts, you would be used to seeing a contact on one page with their name, the organization, and their position or role. When you import those into VESTRO, they get split up into 3 different objects. So organizations, then the positions are separate within the organizations, and people occupy the positions. This has a number of benefits, not the least of which is there's no duplication, and you're able, for example, to have people in a number of different roles simultaneously. So what we're looking at here now is a position record for Able, and that's indicated by the name badge icon in the top left hand corner. So it's his position as CEO of Cadell Systems. And down on the left hand side we have a relationship section which shows everything this position is related to. Well, firstly, it's obviously related to Able because he's the occupant of the position, and it's related to Cadell Systems, which is the organization the position is in. And finally, it's related to me by virtue of the fact I'm related to Able, so then I must also be related to the CEO as well. Moving across the right hand side, we have a notes section where you can add meeting notes, and the notes you add here, by the way, will also appear with Able and the organization. And then beneath that there's the relationship traction section, which shows my last meeting assessment with Able, so that's handy when I next make a call on him. So let's take a look at an organization, and you'll notice it's an organization because it's got the organization or factory icon in the top left hand corner, and there's an orange bar displaying now which says that VESTRO's recognized this could be a duplication. This would have come about because I've imported 3 contacts with the same organization name. VESTRO's recognized that and is asking now, do I want to merge them, which I will do. So what that's enabled now is for me to be able to get a view of all the people I know in an organization in one place. And you'll note also that across on the right hand side it shows the aggregate of my relationships with all the people in the organization. Now as I only know one, Able, then his is the only relationship that displays, but as I connect with the others, then it will show the aggregate score for the others. Going back to Able, and now let's take a look at Able as a person. So click on his name, and I'm looking at an individual now because it has the person icon in the top left hand corner. Again, in the relationship section it shows the Able is related to the position of CEO, and he could have any number of other positions. So you can have people occupy multiple positions, but you're not duplicating any data. And again, the relationship traction score, because of course that's between Able and myself personally. So let's just take a look at some more icons. Here's the frequency or PAR icon which you can adjust from here. That also appeared in Abel's person record. A favorites icon, if you want to keep ready access to this particular record, so you can access it from the favorites icon on the top left there. If you want to remove an item from the favorites, then just slow press on it. The next icon is the edit icon, if you want to change any of the information that you're looking at on this page. Then there's a communications icon, so you can tap on phone number, SMS or email to initiate those actions. And then finally there's a map button based on the address. Tap that and see a Google map. One of the real benefits of the way that VESTRO arranges your information is that, unlike with your device contacts, you don't need to keep deleting and re-entering information as people change roles or take on additional roles. Instead, you just move them around. So let's see how that works. For example, if Abel was to leave this role, we could just click vacate position and he's out of the position. Doesn't delete him, he's still in VESTRO. Alternatively, you can just add another person into the role, and let's do that. You can either find somebody that's existing in VESTRO, just enter in a search term, and I could tap on Barbara, for example, and put her in this position, and that would then remove Abel. Or I can add a new person. Let's do that. So I'm going to put Fred in here. Now, this reference field is simply there if you've got two people of the same name and you want to have some ID to distinguish the difference between them. Enter the cell and email address details for the new person, and that's it. So you've now saved them. By the way, this tips bar displaying is starting to annoy me a bit, so what you can do is get rid of that by a slow press and turn the tips off. So getting back to what we were doing, if we now look across into the relationship section, you'll notice that Fred is now in there as the new occupant, and it's removed Abel as the former occupant. So you haven't lost track of anybody, and it keeps a history of who's been where. You'll notice also that the relationship traction score has gone because, of course, that was with Abel and not with Fred. Similarly, if I now click on Fred, you can see he's related to the role of Cadell Systems, and no traction score again because I haven't yet connected to him. If I look at Abel, I can see that he was the former occupant, and you notice the traction score is still there because, of course, that was with Abel personally. As soon as I learn of Abel's new position or role, I can place him in it simply by tapping the edit icon and selecting add a new position, which also gives me the opportunity, by the way, to place him in an existing position. And I can also do this from a position perspective, so view a position and put Abel in it, so I can do it from either way. Now let's take a look at searching quickly. In the top right hand corner there's a search icon, which opens a search panel, and VESTRO will search on company or person names. In this case I'm searching for a company called Semac, and I'm going to go to Annabelle Phelps and take a look at the organization. Now the orange bar turns up to say that there's two other organizations with the same name because I loaded 3 contacts that were in Samac. So VESTRO has now given me the opportunity to merge the organizations so the 3 people all appear in the same place. And you'll notice in the top left hand corner that an image appears rather than the icon. Where you have an image, then that will display in preference to the position icon. Now one of the things I want to do is set up a par for Annabelle, but you notice there's no par button at the moment, and that's because she and I are not connected. So to connect, I tap the score relationship button, and I don't have to score the relationship actually, I just hit cancel, but that creates the connection. You notice me in the relationship section there in red because we haven't got a scored relationship yet. And to set up a par, I can tap on the orange bar, set a value of 4, and you'll notice that the icon's turned up, and also the contact due has been scheduled